overthinking can quietly take over your life. You sit with a decision, a conversation, or a simple task, and suddenly your mind is spinning. Thoughts repeat themselves, worries grow, and your energy drains without anything actually changing. It feels heavy, exhausting, and endless. Most people accept this as normal, but it doesn't have to be that way. You can take control of your mind, quiet the noise, and start thinking clearly again. This audiobook is designed to give you 6 practical, easy to apply tips that help you stop overthinking forever. These tips aren't complicated theories or ideas that are impossible to use in daily life. They are simple actions and mindset shifts you can practice right now. Each tip helps you focus on what matters, make decisions confidently, and take control of your thoughts instead of letting your thoughts control you. You will learn how to notice when your mind is stuck, redirect your energy toward productive action, and create daily habits that calm your anxiety. You'll discover ways to protect your mental energy, trust yourself, and focus on meaningful priorities. By the end of this audiobook, overthinking will no longer feel like an uncontrollable force in your life. You'll feel calmer, more confident, and ready to take action every day. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by your own thoughts, worried too much, or struggled to make decisions, this audiobook will guide you step by step toward a clearer, stronger, and more peaceful mind. Every tip is actionable, practical, and focused on helping you live better starting today. Chapter 1: Accept your thoughts and choose calm action today. Overthinking often begins in a quiet moment. A small worry enters the mind. Then it returns with a second thought, then a third. Before long, the mind is no longer observing life. It is chasing it. It is fighting shadows. It is trying to solve every possible future before the present has even arrived. That is where peace begins to disappear. Many people believe overthinking means having too many thoughts. That is not the full truth. The real problem is not the presence of thoughts. The real problem is the way a person holds on to them. A thought appears. Then the mind gives it power. Then it becomes a story. Then it becomes a fear. Then it becomes a wall between you and action. The thought itself may be harmless. The attachment to it is what creates suffering. This is why the first step is not to force your mind into silence. That fight usually creates more tension. The first step is to accept that thoughts will come. Some will be useful. Some will be confused. Some will be uncomfortable. Some will repeat old pain. Some will speak loudly when you are tired. Some will show up without warning. This is normal. A disciplined mind does not panic when thoughts appear. It notices them. It allows them to pass without surrendering authority. That is the heart of calm action. You do not need perfect thoughts to begin. You do not need total certainty to move forward. You do not need to feel fearless before you choose what is right. You need only enough clarity to take the next right step. Life changes when a person stops waiting for the mind to become perfect and starts acting with steady purpose, even while the mind is noisy. There is a great deal of peace in this truth. Your thoughts are not commands. They are not always facts. They are not always warnings. They are not always wise. They are events in the mind. Some deserve attention. Others deserve less of it. When you learn this distinction, your life becomes lighter. You stop arguing with every idea that enters your head. You stop treating every fear as a prophecy. You begin to live from a place of choice instead of reaction. Overthinking often grows stronger when life feels uncertain, when there is a decision to make, when a relationship feels fragile, when money feels tight, when work becomes stressful, when the future is unclear. The mind searches for control. It wants to predict every outcome. It wants to avoid pain. It wants certainty before movement. But life does not offer that kind of guarantee. No person gets to walk through the world with complete control over every result. What you can control is your response. What you can control is your conduct. What you can control is whether you stay trapped in your head or return to what can be done now. That is a deeply Stoic lesson. Ancient wisdom has always pointed toward the same truth. Peace does not come from controlling the world. Peace comes from governing yourself. You may not choose every event. You may not choose every setback. You may not choose every opinion others have of you. But you can choose your attention. You can choose your effort. You can choose your words. You can choose whether to stay in confusion or move with discipline. That choice is available more often than people realize. Acceptance is not weakness. Acceptance is not giving up. Acceptance is not pretending that pain is pleasant or that fear is invisible. Acceptance means seeing what is already here without exaggeration and without denial. It means saying to yourself, this thought is here, this feeling is here, this worry is here, and I do not need to make it larger than it is. Once you stop resisting what is present, you gain energy for what can actually be done. Resistance drains the mind. Acceptance returns power to action. Think about how much stress comes from arguing with reality. A delay happens and the mind says this should not be happening. A mistake happens and the mind says, I should have known better. A difficult conversation begins and the mind says this is too much. A future outcome feels unclear and the mind says I must figure it all out right now. That inner argument is exhausting. It creates pressure without producing progress. Acceptance ends the argument. It creates a clear space between what is happening and what you choose to do next. If you are a person who overthinks, you may know the feeling of replaying one moment again and again. You may review a conversation and wonder how you sounded. You may second-guess a decision after it is already made. You may imagine outcomes that have not happened. You may build entire emotional storms from one uncertain detail. This does not make you weak. It means your mind has developed a habit, and habits can be changed. The mind can be trained. A person can learn to stand still inside themselves long enough to see clearly. The first training begins with noticing. Noticing is powerful because it creates distance. When a thought appears and you can say this is a thought and not a fact, then you are no longer fully inside it. You are observing it. That small shift gives you room to breathe. For example, if you notice the thought I am going to fail, you do not have to obey it. You can answer with calm honesty. That may be possible. That may not be true. What matters now is the task in front of me. If you notice the thought everyone is judging me, you can answer with clarity. I do not have all the evidence. I will focus on my conduct and let the rest pass. This is not self-deception. It is mental discipline. A calm action today begins with a simple practice. Pause when the mind starts racing. Do not rush to solve everything. Place your attention on your breathing for a moment. Feel your feet on the ground. Notice the chair beneath you or the surface you are standing on. Look around and name what is real in the present: a room, a sound, a task, a person, a small responsibility. This is not a trick. It is a return. It brings the mind back from the future and anchors it in the only place where action is possible. Then ask one honest question. What is in my control right now? This question is one of the most useful questions a human being can ask. It cuts through confusion. It removes unnecessary drama. It separates action from fantasy. You may not control the outcome of a conversation, but you can control whether you speak with respect. You may not control whether an opportunity appears, but you can control whether you prepare. You may not control another person's mood, but you can control your own response. You may not control what happened yesterday, but you can control the next 10 minutes. That is enough to begin. The mind often resists this simple approach because it wants relief instantly. It wants the problem to vanish. It wants a guarantee. But calm action is different from emotional escape. Calm action does not promise that you will feel perfect. It promises that you will move with dignity even if your emotions are unsettled. There is strength in that. There is peace in that. There is freedom in that. A person who practices calm action learns to separate emotion from behavior. You may feel nervous and still make the call. You may feel disappointed and still finish the work. You may feel uncertain and still send the message. You may feel tired and still keep your word. This is not about ignoring your feelings. It is about not allowing feelings to rule your life. Feelings are important. They deserve attention, but they do not deserve the final vote in every decision. Overthinking thrives on delay. The longer you wait, the more power the imagined problem gains. The longer you stand still, the more convincing fear becomes. That is why action is so healing. Action interrupts the spiral. Even a small step can change the whole inner climate. When you clean your desk, you feel more order. When you write down the task, you feel less chaos. When you answer one email, you reduce mental clutter. When you take one walk, you release tension from the body. When you begin one difficult task, you remind yourself that fear is not the boss. The movement restores confidence. Do not underestimate small actions. A calm mind is often built through repeated ordinary choices. Getting up at the same time, drinking water, tidying a space, writing a few honest lines in a notebook, planning the day in simple terms, saying no to unnecessary noise, finishing one small responsibility before seeking comfort. These are not small in their effect. They train the mind to trust order. They teach the nervous system that not every moment must feel dramatic. They create rhythm, and rhythm brings peace. There is also a deep lesson in learning to tolerate uncertainty. Overthinking often pretends to be preparation. It feels like work. It feels serious. It feels necessary, but often it is only fear dressed in planning clothes. Real preparation is different. Real preparation leads to action. Real preparation asks what can be done and then does it. Overthinking keeps circling the same questions without producing movement. If a matter truly requires thought, then give it honest thought. Set a time. Gather the facts. Make the decision. After that, step away and act. Do not keep reopening the same wound in the mind. A strong person is not someone who never worries. A strong person is someone who knows how to return to center. That return may happen many times a day. It does not matter. What matters is that you practice it. Each return makes the mind more obedient to reason. Each return weakens the habit of panic. Each return proves that you can live by choice rather than by impulse. You may notice that acceptance feels uncomfortable at first. That is because the mind has often learned to fight everything. It has learned to label discomfort as danger. It has learned to chase certainty like a child chasing a bright object across the room. But not every uncomfortable feeling means something is wrong. Sometimes discomfort simply means you are growing. Sometimes it means you are facing reality honestly. Sometimes it means you are no longer escaping. That discomfort is not your enemy. It can be a sign that you are becoming more mature. One of the most practical ways to practice acceptance is to speak truthfully to yourself, not harshly. Truthfully. For example, say, I am anxious, but I can still take the next step. Say, I do not know everything, but I know enough to begin. Say, I made a mistake and I can correct it. Say, this feeling will pass even if it is strong right now. Say, I do not need to solve my whole life today. I only need to handle this moment well. These words are simple, but they steady the mind. They remind you that panic is not wisdom. Another useful practice is to limit the number of decisions you make while emotionally overwhelmed. When the mind is crowded, it often demands immediate resolution, but many decisions become clearer after rest, food, a walk, or a short pause. A calm action today may be as simple as saying, I will think on this and return later with a clearer mind. That is not avoidance. That is discipline. It prevents regret. It protects your energy. It keeps a temporary feeling from making a permanent decision. The body and the mind are connected more closely than many people realize. A restless body often fuels a restless mind. That is why overthinking can soften when you care for the body with simple consistency. Sleep matters. Food, water matters. Movement matters. Sunlight matters. These are not glamorous ideas. They are reliable ones. When your body is under strain, your thoughts often become more dramatic. When your body is cared for, your mind often becomes more stable. It is difficult to think clearly when you are exhausted, hungry, dehydrated, or constantly tense. That means a practical path to less overthinking includes ordinary discipline, not because discipline is cold, but because discipline protects peace. A clean environment can reduce mental friction. A written schedule can reduce decision fatigue. A limited screen habit can reduce comparison and mental noise. A regular walk can clear the mind. A quiet morning can create a stronger emotional base for the day. These habits do not remove all stress, but they make you less vulnerable to it. There is also wisdom in refusing to worship every opinion that enters your head. The mind is not always a wise advisor. Sometimes it repeats old fears. Sometimes it imports other people's voices. Sometimes it turns one setback into a verdict on your worth. When this happens, remember that thoughts are not rulers. They are visitors. Some are useful. Some are mistaken. Some are echoes of the past. You may listen without obeying. That distinction changes everything. A person who learns this no longer lives as a captive of every internal storm. They become steadier. They become more deliberate. They become less impressed by fear. That does not mean they never feel pressure. It means pressure no longer decides their conduct. They still act with kindness. They still take responsibility. They still face problems, but they do so with a quieter mind. That quietness is not emptiness. It is strength. Think of a river. When it is blocked, the water becomes agitated. When it is allowed to flow, it moves with purpose. The human mind is similar. Overthinking is often a blocked flow. Too many thoughts. Too much resistance. Too little movement. Calm action opens the channel. You do not need to force a river to become a river. You simply remove what is blocking its path. In the same way, you do not need to fight your mind into peace. You remove the habits that keep it crowded. You create space. You act. You return. You continue. You may still wonder what to do when a thought feels especially strong. The answer is to meet it with honesty and restraint. Ask whether it is useful. Ask whether it is proven. Ask whether it requires action now or later. If it requires action, then take the action. If it does not, then release it. Not every thought deserves a long discussion. Not every fear deserves a seat at the table. Not every mental image deserves your attention. Some can simply be acknowledged and let go. This is one of the greatest forms of self-respect. To not abandon yourself to chaos. To not let fear choose for you. To not make every feeling into a command. To stand in the middle of uncertainty and still behave with calm dignity. That is a rare kind of power. It changes how you work. It changes how you speak. It changes how you make decisions. It changes how you carry yourself in difficult seasons. And when you begin to live this way, something else happens. The mind starts learning from your behavior. It notices that not every anxious thought leads to disaster. It notices that action often reduces fear. It notices that clarity often comes after movement. It notices that you can survive uncertainty. Over time, this builds trust. The mind becomes less dramatic because it has evidence that you can handle life. This is how confidence grows. Not from pretending to be fearless, but from repeatedly proving that you can stay steady. The beginning of change is often quiet. No one may applaud when you pause before reacting. No one may praise you for taking a walk instead of spiraling. No one may notice when you choose one task over 10 imaginary problems. But your life notices, your body notices, your peace notices, your future notices. Small acts of calm discipline become the foundation of a stronger character. If you are standing in a difficult moment right now, then remember this. You do not have to solve everything in one sitting. You do not have to answer every fear immediately. You do not have to know the outcome before you move. You only have to do the next good thing. Speak clearly. Breathe slowly. Write the task. Make the call. Take the walk. Finish the page. Wash the dish. Send the message. Begin the work. These acts may seem ordinary, but they are powerful because they pull you out of the prison of endless thought. Life becomes easier when you stop demanding that your mind be perfectly calm before you act. Calm often follows action. Clarity often follows movement. Strength often follows discipline. Peace often follows acceptance. The order matters. First you accept what is there, then you choose what is wise, then you move. That is how a person builds inner freedom. Do not waste your life trying to eliminate every uncomfortable thought. That is an impossible standard and a tiring one. Instead, learn the better skill. Notice the thought. Allow it to exist without granting it authority. Return to your breath. Return to the task. Return to the values you want to live by. Return to the present. Again and again. This is how the mind is trained. This is how self-respect grows. This is how peace becomes a way of life instead of a lucky accident. There will always be moments when the mind grows noisy. That is part of being human. The aim is not perfection. The aim is steadiness. A person who is steady can endure more. A person who is steady makes better choices. A person who is steady does not panic at every sound inside the mind. They know how to pause. They know how to observe. They know how to act with care, so begin here, today, not tomorrow, not when everything feels easier, not when the future becomes clearer. Today, accept the thought without worshipping it. Accept the feeling without becoming it. Accept the moment as it is, then do one calm thing that moves your life forward. One honest action, one responsible step, one quiet decision. That is enough to begin changing the pattern. You do not need a louder mind, you need a wiser one. You do not need more fear, you need more discipline. You do not need to win every mental argument, you need to live according to what is true and useful. That is where freedom begins. That is where peace begins. That is where a stronger life begins. And when the mind starts to spin again, as it surely will at times, remember this simple truth. Thoughts can visit without leading. Fear can appear without governing. Confusion can exist without owning you. You are not required to obey every inner voice. You are required to live with purpose. That purpose begins with this moment, this breath, this task, this choice. Calm action today. Chapter 2. Focus on present tasks and stop endless mental loops. A restless mind often spends most of its energy imagining problems that have not happened. It creates pictures of failure, rejection, and loss. These pictures feel powerful because the mind treats them as warnings. Over time, the brain becomes skilled at predicting negative outcomes. The result is hesitation, doubt, and constant inner pressure. Yet the human mind has another powerful ability. It can also imagine success, stability, and progress. It can create mental images that strengthen courage instead of fear. This ability is called visualization. When it is practiced with discipline and emotional belief, it becomes a practical tool for directing attention toward what truly matters. Visualization is not fantasy. It is not pretending that life will be perfect. It is a method of training the mind to focus on meaningful outcomes instead of endless worry. When a person learns to picture the results they want with clarity and emotional commitment, the mind becomes more cooperative. Energy moves toward action instead of doubt. Every achievement begins as an idea before it becomes reality. A builder sees a structure before the first brick is placed. An athlete imagines the winning performance before the competition begins. A speaker feels the message before the words are spoken. The mind prepares the body for action through images. If the mind repeatedly rehearses fear, the body becomes tense. If the mind rehearses progress, the body becomes ready. Many people misunderstand this process. They believe visualization alone will solve problems. That belief leads to disappointment. Visualization is not a replacement for effort. It is preparation for effort. It organizes attention. It strengthens belief. It helps the mind move in the same direction as the actions you take during the day. Consider what happens when a person wakes up with a clear picture of the life they are building. Their decisions become easier. Their focus becomes stronger. Their patience increases. They remember why the work matters. When the mind holds a meaningful picture of the future, small obstacles no longer feel overwhelming. The image of progress pulls the person forward. Without a clear mental image, the mind often drifts. It reacts to distractions. It absorbs other people's fears. It becomes uncertain about direction. This uncertainty creates stress because the brain wants purpose. When purpose is unclear, energy becomes scattered. Visualization restores direction. It creates a mental destination. When the destination is clear, the journey feels less confusing. The mind stops wandering through endless possibilities and begins to concentrate on the path that matters most. To practice visualization effectively, begin with calm attention. Sit quietly for a few minutes. Slow your breathing. Allow your body to relax. The goal is not to force the mind into silence, but to create a moment where your attention is steady. Once the mind becomes calmer, begin to imagine a meaningful outcome. This outcome should be realistic and connected to effort. Imagine completing an important project. Imagine speaking confidently in a difficult conversation. Imagine building a healthier routine. Imagine achieving a personal milestone that reflects discipline and growth. The image must be clear. See the environment. Notice the details around you. Picture the setting where the result becomes real. The more precise the image becomes, the stronger the impact on your mind. However, clarity alone is not enough. Emotion is what gives the image power. When you visualize a desired outcome, allow yourself to feel the sense of progress that comes with it. Feel the quiet pride that comes from fulfilling a responsibility. Feel the relief that arrives after finishing something meaningful. Feel the stability that comes from knowing you honored your effort. Emotion signals importance to the brain. When a mental image carries emotional weight, the mind remembers it more easily. The brain begins to treat that image as a meaningful goal rather than a distant dream. This process is similar to preparing for a journey. When a person studies a map and imagines reaching a destination, the route becomes easier to follow. Visualization gives your mind a map. It reminds you where you are going even when the path becomes challenging. Some people resist visualization because they fear disappointment. They worry that imagining success will make failure feel worse. Yet the opposite is often true. When you imagine progress and then act toward it, your mind becomes more resilient. You start believing that effort has direction. You stop drifting through the day without purpose. A helpful practice is to visualize both effort and outcome together. Do not only imagine the final reward. Also imagine the work required to reach it. See yourself concentrating on the task. See yourself maintaining discipline when distractions appear. See yourself responding calmly when difficulties arise. This balanced approach strengthens character. It trains the mind to associate success with responsibility. It prevents the illusion that results appear without dedication. Daily repetition is important. The mind learns through consistent exposure. A single moment of visualization may inspire you briefly, but regular practice creates lasting change. When you repeat a clear image every morning, your brain begins to organize your attention around that image. Morning is a powerful time for this practice because the mind has not yet absorbed the noise of the day. When you begin the day with intention, your actions follow that direction more naturally. Spend a few minutes each morning imagining the type of person you are becoming. Picture yourself acting with discipline and clarity. Picture yourself completing tasks that move your life forward. Picture yourself handling pressure with calm focus. As the day unfolds, this image acts like an internal guide. When you face a decision, the mind remembers the picture you created earlier. It gently pushes you toward choices that align with your vision. Visualization also strengthens belief in your ability to grow. Many people carry quiet doubts about their potential. They remember past mistakes and assume the future will repeat those patterns. Visualization interrupts this cycle. It introduces a new picture of what is possible. When the mind repeatedly sees an image of progress, it begins to question old limitations. Confidence grows slowly through this process. The brain learns that improvement is achievable because it has rehearsed the experience many times. Another benefit of visualization is emotional stability. When you hold a meaningful vision of the future, temporary problems lose some of their power. A difficult day becomes a small chapter instead of a permanent condition. The mind remains steady because it remembers the larger purpose behind the work. However, visualization requires honesty. The image you create must reflect values that truly matter to you. If the vision is borrowed from someone else's expectations, the mind will not respond with genuine belief. The goal should reflect your own desire for growth, contribution, and meaningful living. Spend time identifying what progress means to you. Perhaps it means becoming more disciplined in your work. Perhaps it means building stronger relationships. Perhaps it means developing emotional stability and patience. When the goal connects to your values, visualization becomes natural. Write your vision in simple language. Describe the life you are building and the habits that support it. Read these words each morning and evening. This practice reinforces the mental picture you want your mind to remember. Visualization also becomes stronger when combined with gratitude. When you imagine your future progress, also acknowledge what already exists in your life. Appreciation creates emotional balance. It reminds you that growth does not require rejecting the present moment. You can appreciate today while still working toward tomorrow. For example, visualize completing an important task with excellence. At the same time, feel gratitude for the opportunity to learn and improve. This combination creates a healthy mindset. You remain motivated without becoming restless or impatient. Another useful technique is writing a brief reflection after visualization. Describe what you saw and how it felt. Writing transforms the image into a concrete commitment. It clarifies your intention and strengthens memory. During the day, return to your vision whenever doubt appears. Close your eyes for a moment and remember the image you practiced earlier. Feel the emotional strength connected to it. Then return to the task with renewed focus. This habit trains the mind to replace fear with direction. Instead of imagining problems repeatedly, you begin recalling the future you are building through effort and discipline. Visualization also improves decision-making. When your long-term direction is clear, short-term choices become easier. You naturally select actions that support your vision and avoid distractions that weaken it. For instance, if you visualize becoming more focused and disciplined, you will feel less attracted to habits that waste time. The mental image acts as a quiet reminder of the person you are becoming. Patience is important during this process. The mind does not transform instantly. Old patterns may return occasionally. Thoughts of doubt may appear. When that happens, return to your practice without frustration. Each repetition strengthens the new direction you are building. It is helpful to remember that visualization influences behavior gradually. The brain forms connections through consistent attention. Over weeks and months, your actions begin to reflect the images you practice. Many successful individuals have used visualization as part of their discipline. Athletes rehearse their movements mentally before competitions. Leaders imagine clear communication before difficult meetings. Creators picture their finished work before beginning the process. These individuals understand that the mind guides the body. When the mind sees a clear path, the body follows with greater confidence. Your own visualization practice can become a quiet, daily ritual. It requires only a few minutes of focused attention, yet its effects extend throughout the entire day. Those minutes remind you that your life has direction and purpose. The goal is not to escape reality, but to shape it through consistent effort guided by clear intention. Visualization becomes a compass that keeps you oriented even when circumstances feel uncertain. As you continue this practice, your relationship with your thoughts begins to change. Instead of allowing random worries to dominate your attention, you intentionally create images that support growth and discipline. Your mind becomes less chaotic because it has a destination. Your energy becomes more focused because it serves a meaningful direction. Over time, the habit of imagining progress replaces the habit of expecting failure. When you wake tomorrow, begin again with quiet focus. Picture the person you are becoming through patience and effort. Feel the strength of that vision. Then step into the day prepared to act with purpose. Visualization is not magic. It is mental training. It prepares your attention, strengthens your belief, and directs your effort toward meaningful results. When practiced daily with sincerity and discipline, it becomes a powerful ally in the journey toward a calmer mind and a more intentional life. A clear vision combined with consistent action gradually transforms uncertainty into confidence. The future begins to feel less frightening because you are actively shaping it through your thoughts and behavior. Each day you practice this discipline, the image of your progress becomes stronger. The mind begins to cooperate with your goals rather than resist them. Doubt becomes quieter. Focus becomes sharper. In time, you realize that the pictures you hold in your mind influence the direction of your life. When those pictures reflect courage, effort, and belief, your actions begin to reflect the same qualities. And that is where real change begins. Not in sudden dramatic moments, but in quiet daily practices that align the mind with purposeful action. Visualization becomes one of those practices. It reminds you that the future is not only something that happens to you. It is something you prepare for through disciplined thought and steady effort. Chapter 3: Train your mind to question negative thinking patterns. The human mind has an incredible ability to think, analyze, and solve problems. This ability has helped people survive difficult situations, build societies, and improve their lives. Yet the same powerful mind can also become a source of constant struggle when it develops the habit of negative thinking. When negative patterns take control, the mind stops serving growth and begins creating unnecessary suffering. Many people assume their thoughts are always accurate reflections of reality. They believe that if a thought appears in the mind, it must be true. This belief gives negative thoughts enormous influence. A single moment of doubt can expand into a long chain of discouraging conclusions. A small mistake can turn into the belief that failure is inevitable. A brief worry can grow into the assumption that everything will go wrong. Training the mind to question these patterns is one of the most important skills a person can develop. Without this skill, negative thoughts operate like silent rulers inside the mind. They shape emotions, influence decisions, and weaken confidence without ever being examined. Once you begin questioning them, their power begins to fade. Negative thinking patterns usually form through repetition. Experiences from the past leave emotional impressions. A difficult moment may create the belief that you are not capable enough. A painful rejection may plant the idea that people will always judge you. Over time, these beliefs turn into automatic thoughts. They appear quickly and feel convincing because they have been repeated many times. Yet repetition does not make a thought true. It only makes it familiar. Familiar ideas feel comfortable to the brain even when they are inaccurate. That is why questioning negative patterns requires awareness and patience. The goal is not to force the mind into unrealistic positivity. The goal is to examine thoughts carefully and determine whether they deserve your trust. Begin by learning to pause when a negative thought appears. Instead of accepting it immediately, step back and observe it. Imagine that you are listening to someone else speak. Ask yourself whether the statement would sound reasonable if another person said it out loud. Often you will notice that the thought is exaggerated or incomplete. For example, the mind may say that you always fail when trying something new. When you hear this statement, stop and examine it. Ask whether it is supported by clear evidence. Consider moments when you learned something successfully or improved through effort. When you compare the thought with reality, you may discover that it is not accurate. Another common pattern is predicting negative outcomes before events happen. The mind may insist that a conversation will go badly or that a project will fail. These predictions feel persuasive because the brain tries to protect you from disappointment. However, predictions about the future are rarely certain. Questioning them creates space for a more balanced perspective. When you notice a prediction forming in your mind, ask what facts support it. Ask whether there are alternative outcomes that are also possible. This simple questioning process interrupts the habit of assuming the worst. It reminds your mind that the future has many possibilities, not only the one created by fear. Negative patterns also appear through harsh self-judgment. Some people speak to themselves in ways they would never speak to another human being. They criticize every mistake and treat imperfections as proof of weakness. Over time, this inner criticism damages confidence and increases anxiety. To train your mind effectively, begin replacing harsh judgments with honest evaluation. A mistake does not define your ability as a person. It only provides information about what needs improvement. When something goes wrong, examine the situation calmly. Identify what happened and what can be adjusted next time. This approach turns errors into lessons instead of permanent labels. Another useful practice is writing down your thoughts. When ideas remain inside the mind, they can grow stronger because they are not challenged. Writing them on paper allows you to examine them more clearly. Once the thought is visible, ask whether it is logical and fair. You may notice that some thoughts rely on extreme language. Words like always, never, everyone, and nothing often appear in negative patterns. These words create the illusion that a situation is permanent or universal. In reality, most experiences are temporary and limited. When you encounter this type of language, replace it with more accurate descriptions. Instead of saying that you always fail, recognize that you experience difficulty in one situation. Instead of assuming everyone is judging you, accept that a few people may have opinions while many others are focused on their own lives. This shift in language may seem small, but it changes the emotional impact of the thought. Accurate language creates a clearer understanding of reality and reduces unnecessary pressure. Another important aspect of questioning negative patterns involves recognizing emotional triggers. Certain situations may activate strong reactions based on past experiences. For instance, criticism may trigger feelings of insecurity if you have previously been judged harshly. When these reactions appear, pause and remind yourself that the current moment is not identical to the past. Separate the present situation from earlier memories. Evaluate what is happening right now instead of responding automatically. This awareness prevents old fears from controlling your present behavior. Training the mind also requires developing curiosity about your own thinking. Instead of treating thoughts as commands, treat them as information. Observe them with interest. Ask where they came from and whether they serve your long-term well-being. Curiosity transforms the relationship you have with your mind. Instead of feeling trapped by negative thoughts, you become an investigator studying how your thinking operates. This perspective creates emotional distance and strengthens self-control. Another practical strategy is gathering evidence before accepting a conclusion. When the mind claims that something is impossible or that you are not capable enough, search for real examples that contradict the claim. Remember moments when you solved problems, completed tasks, or learned new skills. Evidence changes the direction of thinking. It reminds the brain that past achievements exist and that progress has already happened. This reminder builds confidence and encourages continued effort. Physical movement can also help interrupt negative patterns. When the mind becomes trapped in repetitive thoughts, the body often remains still. Taking a short walk or engaging in light activity changes your environment and resets your attention. Movement sends signals to the brain that it is time to shift focus. Another valuable habit is limiting exposure to constant negativity from external sources. News cycles, social media, and conversations filled with complaints can reinforce pessimistic thinking. Protect your mental space by choosing what information you allow into your mind. Surround yourself with ideas and people that encourage thoughtful growth. This does not mean avoiding reality. It means balancing information with perspectives that support resilience and learning. Patience is essential during this training process. The mind has practiced negative patterns for many years in some cases. Changing these habits requires consistent attention. There may be moments when old thoughts return strongly. When that happens, continue questioning them without frustration. Each time you examine a thought instead of obeying it automatically, you strengthen your mental discipline. Over time, the brain learns that negative assumptions will be challenged. This awareness reduces their intensity and frequency. Developing supportive daily routines also helps maintain balanced thinking. Begin the day by setting a clear intention for how you want to approach challenges. Remind yourself that thoughts are tools rather than masters. End the day by reflecting on lessons learned and progress made. These reflections reinforce the habit of thoughtful evaluation instead of emotional reaction. They create a sense of control over your mental environment. It is also helpful to recognize that everyone experiences negative thoughts occasionally. The presence of such thoughts does not mean something is wrong with you. What matters is how you respond to them. People who develop strong mental discipline are not free from doubt, but they refuse to let doubt dictate their actions. With practice, you will notice subtle changes in your thinking. Thoughts that once seemed overwhelming will appear less convincing. Situations that once triggered anxiety will feel easier to navigate. Confidence grows quietly as the mind learns to approach challenges with reason instead of fear. The process of questioning negative patterns strengthens self-respect. You begin treating your mind as a valuable instrument that deserves careful training. Instead of allowing random ideas to shape your behavior, you become the person who evaluates and directs them. This transformation does not happen through dramatic moments of realization. It develops through steady practice and honest reflection. Every time you challenge a negative thought, you reinforce the habit of rational thinking. Every time you choose effort instead of resignation, you reshape the way your mind interprets reality. Over time, the internal conversation changes. Fear loses its authority. Doubt becomes a signal for examination rather than surrender. The mind becomes a partner in growth rather than a source of constant pressure. The goal is not to eliminate thinking but to refine it. A disciplined mind still analyzes situations and anticipates problems, yet it does so with clarity and fairness. It focuses on solutions rather than endless criticism. As this discipline strengthens, you begin experiencing a quieter form of confidence. You trust your ability to handle difficulties because you know how to examine your thoughts calmly. This trust reduces the urge to overthink every situation. Your attention shifts toward constructive action. Instead of debating imaginary outcomes, you focus on what can be learned and improved today. Progress becomes more important than perfection. Through this process, you discover that the mind can become a powerful ally when it is trained carefully. Negative patterns lose their grip because they are no longer accepted without question. Clear thinking replaces unnecessary worry. This change opens space for creativity, patience, and steady growth. The energy that was once spent on self-doubt becomes available for meaningful work and stronger relationships. When you continue practicing this discipline each day, your thinking gradually aligns with reality and purpose. The mind stops creating obstacles that do not exist and begins supporting the life you are working to build. In this way, questioning negative thinking patterns becomes more than a mental exercise. It becomes a foundation for personal freedom. You learn to guide your thoughts with awareness, respond to challenges with reason, and move forward with a stronger sense of direction. Chapter 40 builds simple daily habits that quiet an anxious mind. A restless mind rarely appears without a cause. Anxiety often grows in environments filled with disorder, constant stimulation, and a lack of clear structure. When daily life feels chaotic, the mind searches for stability but cannot find it. Thoughts begin racing in different directions, trying to manage every possibility at once. The result is mental fatigue and emotional tension. One of the most reliable ways to calm an anxious mind is not through complex strategies, but through simple habits repeated consistently. Small daily actions create structure. Structure reduces uncertainty. When the mind begins to trust the rhythm of everyday life, it gradually becomes quieter. Many people underestimate the power of ordinary routines. They search for dramatic solutions while ignoring the quiet strength of small disciplines. Yet the human brain responds strongly to patterns. When positive habits are practiced regularly, the mind begins to feel safe within those patterns. A calm mind often begins with the way a day starts. The first moments after waking can shape the tone for everything that follows. When the morning begins with confusion or rushed activity, the brain enters a reactive state immediately. Thoughts scatter quickly, and stress begins before the day has truly started. Creating a stable morning routine helps prevent this reaction. Wake up at a consistent time each day. Take a few quiet minutes before looking at a phone or engaging with external noise. Allow the mind to arrive fully in the present moment. A simple practice such as stretching, drinking water, or sitting in silence can ground your attention. This quiet beginning signals to the brain that the day has direction. Instead of rushing into obligations without preparation, you begin from a position of awareness. Even a short period of calm can change how the mind responds to challenges later. Movement is another habit that reduces anxiety effectively. The human body was not designed to remain still for long periods while the mind processes constant information. Physical movement releases stored tension and improves mental clarity. A walk outside, light exercise, or simple stretching can create noticeable changes in mood and focus. When the body moves, breathing becomes deeper. Oxygen flows more efficiently through the brain. Muscles relax. These changes communicate safety to the nervous system. The mind often becomes calmer because the body is no longer holding excessive tension. Another important habit is limiting unnecessary noise. Modern life surrounds people with endless streams of information. Notifications, headlines, messages, and conversations compete for attention throughout the day. Each new piece of information demands mental processing. Over time, this overload creates constant stimulation that the brain struggles to manage. Choosing moments of silence during the day can restore mental balance. Turn off unnecessary alerts. Step away from screens for short periods. Sit quietly without filling every moment with input. Silence allows the mind to reset. Thoughts slow down because the brain is no longer reacting to constant signals. Organizing your environment also influences mental calm. A cluttered space often leads to a cluttered mind. When objects are scattered and responsibilities are unclear, the brain feels overwhelmed by unfinished tasks. Creating order in your surroundings removes many subtle stress signals. Spend a few minutes each day putting things back in their place. Clear your workspace before beginning a task. Keep essential items easy to locate. These actions may appear simple, yet they reduce decision fatigue and improve focus. Another habit that quiets anxiety is writing. Thoughts that remain trapped inside the mind often become louder. Writing them down allows you to examine them from a distance. A notebook can become a place where worries are acknowledged without dominating your attention. Begin by writing whatever concerns appear in your mind. Do not worry about perfect sentences or structure. The goal is simply to release mental pressure. After writing, review the thoughts calmly and decide which ones require action and which ones can be set aside. This process trains the brain to separate problems from imagination. When concerns are visible on paper, they often appear smaller and more manageable. Clarity replaces confusion. Planning the day with a short list of priorities also reduces anxiety. When the mind tries to remember many responsibilities at once, stress increases quickly. Creating a written list provides direction and prevents important tasks from being forgotten. Limit the list to a few meaningful objectives. Focus on completing those tasks with attention and patience. Finishing even one responsibility creates a sense of progress. Progress builds confidence and reduces the urge to overthink. Eating and resting properly are also essential habits for mental calm. The brain depends on physical health to function effectively. Irregular meals, lack of sleep, and constant fatigue weaken the mind's ability to manage stress. Sleep restores the nervous system and allows the brain to process information from the day. When rest is neglected, emotional reactions become stronger and concentration decreases. Protecting your sleep schedule is one of the most practical forms of self-discipline. Balanced meals also influence mood and focus. Stable energy levels help maintain clear thinking throughout the day. Drinking enough water supports brain function and prevents unnecessary fatigue. Gratitude is another habit that gently shifts the mind away from constant worry. Anxiety often focuses attention on what might go wrong. Gratitude redirects attention toward what is already working. This shift does not deny challenges, it simply balances perspective. Each evening take a moment to acknowledge a few positive experiences from the day. They may be small moments such as completing a task, enjoying a conversation, or noticing something peaceful during a walk. Recognizing these moments trains the mind to see more than problems. Consistent breathing practices can also quiet anxious thoughts. Slow breathing activates the body's relaxation response. When the breath becomes steady, the heart rate slows and muscles release tension. Take several deep breaths when stress begins to rise. Inhale slowly through the nose and exhale gently through the mouth. Focus attention on the rhythm of breathing rather than the thoughts creating tension. This simple habit can interrupt anxiety before it grows stronger. Spending time in nature is another effective daily practice. Natural environments provide sensory experiences that calm the nervous system. The sound of wind, the movement of trees, and the openness of outdoor spaces create a feeling of perspective. Even short periods outside can refresh the mind. Walking in a park, sitting near a tree, or observing the sky can reduce mental pressure. Nature reminds the mind that life moves at a slower and steadier pace than the constant rush of modern routines. Meaningful connection with others also contributes to emotional balance. Isolation often increases anxious thinking because the mind has no external perspective. Speaking honestly with a trusted friend or family member can release built-up tension. These conversations do not require long explanations. Sometimes sharing a simple concern is enough to reduce its weight. Listening to others also reminds you that challenges are part of the shared human experience. Limiting unnecessary commitments is another helpful discipline. When the schedule becomes overcrowded, the mind remains in a constant state of urgency. Learning to say no to tasks that do not align with your priorities protects your mental space. This practice requires honesty about what truly matters. Focus your time on responsibilities and relationships that support your well-being and growth. Reducing excess obligations allows you to give proper attention to the commitments that remain. Reflection at the end of each day strengthens the habit of mental calm. Spend a few quiet minutes reviewing how the day unfolded. Notice what worked well and where adjustments may help tomorrow. Approach this reflection with patience rather than criticism. The purpose is learning, not judgment. Each day becomes an opportunity to improve your routines and strengthen discipline. Over time, these simple habits create a stable foundation for the mind. Anxiety does not disappear instantly, yet its influence becomes weaker. The brain learns that daily life contains predictable rhythms that support calm attention. Small habits may appear insignificant when viewed individually. However, their combined effect can transform the way the mind responds to stress. A steady routine communicates safety to the nervous system. Safety allows thoughts to slow down and become more organized. The goal is not to eliminate every challenge from life. Difficult moments will still appear. Responsibilities will still demand effort. Yet with strong daily habits, the mind approaches these challenges from a place of balance rather than panic. When the day contains consistent practices that support clarity, you develop trust in your ability to handle pressure. That trust becomes a powerful source of inner strength. Each habit acts like a quiet anchor throughout the day. A calm morning prepares the mind for focus. Movement releases tension. Silence restores attention. Writing provides clarity. Rest strengthens resilience. Gratitude encourages perspective. Through repetition, these actions become natural parts of daily living. The mind no longer feels overwhelmed because it recognizes a reliable pattern guiding the day forward. This is how lasting calm is built, not through complicated techniques, but through simple disciplines practiced with consistency and care. Each small action strengthens the relationship between your mind and your daily life. As these habits become established, you begin to notice subtle changes. Thoughts become less chaotic. Reactions become slower and more thoughtful. Challenges appear more manageable. The anxious mind slowly transforms into a steady mind. A steady mind allows you to live with greater presence and purpose. Your attention moves away from constant worry and toward meaningful effort. Life becomes easier to navigate when your days are supported by simple habits that protect your mental space. Over time, these habits create a quiet strength that carries you through both calm and difficult moments with clarity and composure. Chapter 5: Limit information overload and protect your mental energy. The modern world provides access to more information than any generation has ever experienced. News arrives every minute. Messages appear instantly. Opinions travel across screens without pause. Knowledge is available with a single search. While this access offers many benefits, it also creates a serious challenge for the human mind. Too much information can overwhelm attention and drain mental energy. The brain was not designed to process endless streams of data throughout the day. Every piece of information requires attention, interpretation, and emotional response. When these demands accumulate without rest, the mind becomes overloaded. Thoughts begin to scatter. Concentration weakens. Anxiety increases because the brain feels responsible for processing more input than it can manage. Many people assume that staying constantly informed will give them greater control over life. They believe that more knowledge automatically leads to better decisions. In reality, the opposite often occurs when the flow of information becomes excessive. Instead of clarity, the mind experiences confusion. Instead of confidence, the mind experiences doubt. Protecting mental energy requires recognizing that attention is a limited resource. Just as the body cannot lift unlimited weight, the mind cannot analyze unlimited information without consequences. Each decision about where to place attention shapes your mental environment. One of the most effective ways to protect mental energy is learning to choose what information deserves your focus. Not every headline requires investigation. Not every conversation deserves extended analysis. Not every opinion must influence your thinking. The ability to filter information is a form of discipline that strengthens mental stability. Begin by examining how you consume information each day. Notice how often you check your phone, scroll through updates, or move from one topic to another. These habits may feel harmless, yet they train the mind to expect constant stimulation. Over time, the brain becomes restless when it is not receiving new input. This constant stimulation prevents deep thinking. The mind remains busy reacting rather than reflecting. When you attempt to focus on a meaningful task, your attention may wander because it has become accustomed to rapid changes in information. Reducing this overload begins with creating boundaries around when and how you receive information. Choose specific times during the day to check messages, read news, or review updates. Outside those times, return your attention to the work or activity in front of you. This practice teaches the brain that it does not need to react immediately to every signal. Gradually, the urge to check constantly begins to fade. You regain control over where your attention goes. Another helpful strategy is limiting exposure to content that adds emotional pressure without offering practical value. Certain forms of media are designed to capture attention through dramatic stories and alarming headlines. While these stories may seem important, consuming them repeatedly can create unnecessary stress. Ask yourself whether the information you are reading improves your understanding of the world or simply triggers strong emotions. If it does not contribute to useful knowledge or thoughtful discussion, consider reducing the time you spend with it. Your mental space deserves the same protection as your physical environment. Just as you would avoid filling your home with clutter, you can avoid filling your mind with excessive noise. Curating the information you allow into your life creates a calmer internal atmosphere. Another important practice is learning to embrace moments without external input. Many people feel uncomfortable when there is silence or empty space during the day. They immediately reach for a device or conversation to fill the gap. Yet these quiet moments allow the brain to process experiences and restore mental balance. Take short breaks where you step away from screens and information sources. Walk outside, sit quietly, or simply observe your surroundings. During these moments, the mind organizes thoughts naturally. Solutions often appear during quiet reflection rather than during constant activity. Deep work also becomes possible when information overload is reduced. Deep work refers to periods of focused effort without interruption. During these periods, the mind engages fully with a single task. Creativity increases and productivity improves because attention remains steady. To create this environment, remove distractions before beginning important work. Turn off unnecessary notifications. Close unrelated tabs or applications. Inform others that you will be unavailable for a certain period. These actions signal to the brain that it is time for concentrated effort. The quality of your attention determines the quality of your results. When attention is divided among many inputs, progress becomes slow and frustrating. When attention is focused, tasks that once seemed difficult become manageable. Protecting mental energy also involves recognizing the difference between useful learning and endless consumption. Reading books, studying new ideas, and exploring thoughtful discussions can expand your perspective. However, jumping constantly between topics without reflection often leads to shallow understanding. Choose a few subjects that truly matter to you. Study them carefully. Reflect on how the information applies to your life. This focused approach allows knowledge to become wisdom instead of remaining scattered facts. Another challenge created by information overload is comparison. Social media platforms present carefully selected images of other people's lives. When these images appear repeatedly, the mind may begin measuring personal progress against unrealistic standards. Limiting exposure to constant comparison protects emotional well-being. Remember that the images you see rarely represent the full reality of another person's experience. Everyone faces struggles and uncertainties that remain unseen. Instead of comparing your path with others, direct your attention toward your own growth. Ask whether your actions today align with your values and long-term goals. This focus creates satisfaction that external validation cannot provide. Mental energy also improves when you practice completing tasks before seeking new information. Many people interrupt their work repeatedly to check updates or messages. Each interruption forces the brain to switch context. This switching consumes energy and reduces efficiency. Train yourself to finish a specific task before turning to another source of information. This habit strengthens concentration and reduces the mental fatigue caused by constant shifting between activities. Physical environment plays an important role in managing information flow as well. Keeping devices out of immediate reach during certain activities can reduce temptation. For example, placing your phone in another room while working or resting creates distance from constant notifications. This small change allows your mind to remain present in the moment rather than anticipating the next update. Presence improves both productivity and relaxation. Rest is another essential element in protecting mental energy. When the brain receives continuous stimulation without pause, fatigue develops quickly. Sleep and relaxation restore the nervous system and allow the mind to process information effectively. Respect your need for rest. Schedule time each day when you disengage from work and digital input. Engage in activities that refresh your attention, such as reading a physical book, spending time with loved ones, or enjoying a peaceful environment. Over time, these practices create a healthier relationship with information. Instead of feeling controlled by constant updates, you become the person who decides when and how information enters your life. This shift restores clarity and calm thinking. The mind becomes more capable of analyzing important issues because it is no longer burdened by unnecessary noise. Protecting mental energy also improves emotional resilience. When the brain is not overloaded, it responds to challenges with greater patience. Decisions become more thoughtful because attention is not scattered across countless inputs. This discipline may feel unfamiliar at first because modern habits encourage constant engagement with information. Yet the benefits become clear quickly. Focus increases, stress decreases, creative thinking returns. Imagine the difference between a room filled with loud conversations and a quiet library. In the loud room, it is difficult to hear any single voice clearly. In the quiet library, concentration becomes natural. The same principle applies to the mind. By limiting information overload, you create the mental equivalent of a quiet library. Thoughts become easier to organize. Decisions become easier to make. Inner calm replaces constant stimulation. Protecting your attention is not an act of withdrawal from the world. It is an act of intelligent participation. When your mind is clear and focused, you can engage with life more effectively. Every day presents a choice about how you use your mental energy. You can allow endless information to pull your attention in many directions, or you can direct your attention toward what truly matters. Choosing wisely requires awareness and discipline. Set boundaries around information sources. Value silence and reflection. Focus deeply on meaningful tasks. Rest when the mind becomes tired. Through these practices, you develop a stronger and more stable mind. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by the noise of the modern world, you become someone who navigates it with calm intention. Your attention becomes a powerful tool rather than a scattered resource. With protected mental energy, you gain the clarity needed to pursue your goals and live with greater purpose. The world will continue producing information at an endless pace. Yet you do not need to consume it all. By choosing carefully what deserves your focus, you preserve the strength of your mind and create the space required for thoughtful living. Chapter 60. Practice decisive action to break the cycle of hesitation. Hesitation often feels harmless at first. A person pauses for a moment and tells themselves that they are simply being careful. They want to think things through. They want to avoid mistakes. They want the perfect time, the perfect words, and the perfect outcome. Yet hesitation has a quiet way of growing stronger each time it is allowed to stay. What begins as caution can slowly become a habit of delay. What begins as prudence can become fear wearing a careful mask. The truth is that many people do not remain stuck because they lack ability. They remain stuck because they keep waiting for absolute certainty before acting. The mind wants proof before movement. It wants comfort before commitment. It wants control before courage. But life rarely offers that much preparation. Most valuable opportunities appear with some level of uncertainty attached to them. The person who learns to act despite uncertainty becomes stronger than the person who keeps waiting for life to become easy. Decisive action is a skill. It is not about rushing carelessly. It is about choosing a direction and moving with firmness once enough truth is known. A decisive person does not waste energy reopening every decision after it is made. They study the situation, accept the facts, and move forward with full attention. This is one of the clearest ways to break the cycle of hesitation, because the mind cannot spin endlessly when the body is already in motion. Hesitation usually feeds on imagined consequences. The mind says that if you choose wrongly, everything may fall apart. It exaggerates the weight of one step. It treats a single decision like a final verdict on your entire life. This creates pressure, and pressure creates paralysis. But most decisions are not permanent monuments. They are simply steps. Some will work well. Some will need adjustment. Some will teach you valuable lessons. Very few will define your whole future in one moment. That is why action matters. It reminds the mind that movement is safer than endless delay. A person who hesitates too long often becomes trapped in a private battle with possibilities. The same question repeats again and again. What if this happens? What if that goes wrong? What if I am not ready? What if I regret it? The mind keeps building scenes that may never exist. Meanwhile, the present moment passes untouched. Time does not pause for fear. It keeps moving. So the longer a person waits, the heavier the moment feels, and the more difficult the first step becomes. Decisive action interrupts that pattern. It says enough thinking for now. It says the facts are clear enough. It says this is the next responsible move. It says I do not need perfect confidence to begin. That decision itself becomes a source of strength. Action gives the mind a job. It turns scattered thought into focused effort. The internal storm starts to settle because energy is no longer wasted on circular doubt. One of the easiest ways to practice decisiveness is to reduce the size of the moment. Many people freeze because they think in terms of the whole mountain instead of the next step. A difficult conversation seems enormous. A project feels overwhelming. A life change appears too large to handle all at once. But action becomes more manageable when broken into small parts. What is the first task? What is the first call? What is the first sentence? What is the first page? What is the first honest step? When the mind sees only the next step, hesitation loses some of its power. Small decisions matter more than people realize. Each one trains the mind to trust itself, choosing to begin work at a set time, choosing to respond instead of avoid, choosing to ask the question, choosing to make the appointment, choosing to send the draft, choosing to clean the space before it becomes a burden. These moments may seem ordinary, but they are the building blocks of a decisive life. The more often you act quickly on simple responsibilities, the more natural decisiveness becomes in bigger matters. A decisive person does not wait for feelings to become perfect. They understand that emotions can follow action rather than lead it. The heart often resists before it cooperates. The mind may feel tired before it feels capable. Yet once you begin, momentum carries you farther than fear predicted. That is why starting is so important. The first movement creates a shift in identity. It proves that you are not a prisoner of hesitation. You are someone who can begin. There is also a deep discipline in accepting that not every decision will feel comfortable. Comfort is not the highest measure of wisdom. Some choices require courage because they push you into growth. The mind often avoids discomfort because it associates discomfort with danger. But many healthy changes feel uncomfortable at first. A hard conversation, a necessary boundary, a new habit, a delayed pleasure, a corrected mistake, or an honest admission can all feel unsettling before they become freeing. Decisive action teaches you that discomfort is not always a sign to stop. Sometimes it is simply a sign that progress has begun. Another reason hesitation is so powerful is that it creates the illusion of safety. The mind says that if you delay, you avoid risk, but delay has its own cost. Opportunities fade, confidence weakens, pressure builds, energy drains. A person who keeps postponing action often suffers more from indecision than from the choice itself. In many cases, the fear of acting becomes more painful than the act. Once that is understood, the mind begins to see hesitation more clearly. It is no longer safety. It is merely a slower form of stress. Decisive action also protects self-respect. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, your trust in yourself grows stronger. Every time you say you will do something and then do it, the mind receives proof that you are reliable. This trust matters because a person who trusts themselves is less likely to overthink every step. They have evidence from their own life that they can handle responsibility. That evidence becomes a shield against fear. The opposite is also true. When a person repeatedly delays important action, they begin to doubt themselves. They remember unfinished tasks. They remember missed chances. They remember promises left unkept. This weakens confidence and makes hesitation worse. The cycle grows in both directions. Action builds trust. Delay builds doubt. That is why the decision to act is never only about the external task. It is also about the kind of person you are becoming internally. To break the cycle of hesitation, it helps to set time limits on decisions that do not require endless thought. Some choices deserve reflection, others only need honest attention and a firm conclusion. If you know enough, decide. If you have enough information, move. If the risk is manageable, act. Do not let a small matter consume the energy meant for more important work. The habit of deciding in a timely way teaches the mind to stay alert and responsible instead of drifting into confusion. It also helps to notice when fear is disguising itself as preparation. The mind can produce many reasons to delay. It may demand more research, more planning, more reassurance, or one more day of thinking. Sometimes those things are useful. Other times they are simply methods of avoiding discomfort. Be honest with yourself. Ask whether more time will truly improve the decision or whether the hesitation is only preserving anxiety. Honest self-examination cuts through much of the noise. A strong life is built by people who choose action over endless internal debate. They do not need to feel like heroes. They simply refuse to remain passive when a responsible step is available. They answer the message. They make the call. They begin the task. They speak the truth. They finish what matters. They move with enough courage to let reality teach them what thought alone cannot. This does not mean a person should never pause. Reflection has value. Wisdom includes patience. But there is a difference between thoughtful pause and fear-based delay. Thoughtful pause has purpose. It leads to clarity. Fear-based delay only circles the same ground. Learning that difference is part of maturity. Once you can see it clearly, you no longer waste so much of your life waiting for the perfect feeling that may never arrive. The moment you choose decisiveness, the mind begins to change. It learns that movement is possible. It learns that uncertainty does not have to become paralysis. It learns that action brings relief more reliably than imagined control. The body gains energy from forward motion. The heart gains confidence from completed steps. The spirit gains peace from knowing that life is being faced directly. That is how hesitation loses its grip. Not through force alone, but through repeated proof that you can decide and act. One small decision at a time. One honest step at a time. One responsible move at a time. Each act of courage weakens the old pattern. Each moment of follow-through strengthens the new one. So when you feel yourself frozen, do not wait for fear to disappear. Do not wait for the perfect sign. Do not wait for your mind to become completely silent. Choose the next useful action and begin. Say the words, take the step, start the work, finish the task. Let movement be your answer to uncertainty. A decisive life is not a life without doubt. It is a life in which doubt no longer rules. It is a life where action carries more authority than fear. It is a life where the mind learns to trust what steady effort can do. And when that happens, hesitation no longer defines your days. Purpose does. Chapter 70 strengthens self-trust through small, daily confident decisions. Self-trust is one of the quiet foundations of a stable and peaceful life. When a person trusts their own judgment, decisions feel clearer and the mind becomes calmer. When that trust is weak, the mind constantly searches for reassurance from outside sources. Doubt appears in simple moments. Small choices become heavy because the mind fears making the wrong move. Overthinking grows in this environment because the brain no longer believes in its own ability to navigate life. Many people believe self-trust is something you either have or do not have. They assume it belongs only to confident individuals who rarely experience doubt. In reality, self-trust is built through daily behavior. It grows slowly through repeated proof that you can rely on your own choices. Every small decision that you make with honesty and follow through adds strength to that inner belief. A person who lacks self-trust often asks the same question repeatedly. What if I make the wrong decision? What if I fail? What if others disapprove? These questions create hesitation because the mind assumes mistakes will destroy confidence. Yet the opposite is true. Confidence grows when you practice making decisions and learning from the results. Small daily decisions are the training ground for this growth. Life presents countless opportunities to choose a direction. You decide when to wake up, what task to begin first, how to respond to someone, how to spend time, and how to handle responsibilities. Each of these moments contains a chance to strengthen your trust in yourself. The process begins with awareness. Notice how often you delay simple decisions because you want reassurance. You might hesitate before sending a message or question whether your opinion is correct. You might change plans repeatedly because you fear disappointing others. These patterns reveal places where self-trust needs strengthening. Instead of avoiding these moments, treat them as practice. Make a thoughtful choice and follow through with calm confidence. Accept that the result may not always be perfect. The purpose is not flawless performance. The purpose is building a habit of trusting your ability to act. Consistency matters more than size. Many people expect confidence to come from large achievements. They imagine that success in a major project or public recognition will suddenly remove doubt. While accomplishments can increase confidence, the deeper form of trust grows through ordinary actions repeated every day. Consider the simple decision to begin work when you plan to begin. When you keep that promise to yourself, you demonstrate reliability. The mind records that experience. It learns that your intentions lead to action. Over time, these small confirmations accumulate and create a stronger internal voice that says you can depend on yourself. Another example appears in how you handle responsibilities. When a task requires attention, choose a time to complete it and honor that decision. Do not postpone unnecessarily. Finishing what you start builds evidence of discipline. Evidence of discipline strengthens self-trust. Your internal dialogue also influences this process. Many people criticize themselves harshly after mistakes. They treat errors as proof that they cannot rely on their own judgment. This approach damages confidence and encourages hesitation. A healthier perspective recognizes that mistakes are part of learning. When a decision leads to an unexpected result, review the experience calmly. Identify what worked and what needs adjustment. This evaluation turns mistakes into information rather than personal failure. Each lesson gained from experience increases your ability to make better choices in the future. Self-trust also grows when you express your honest thoughts respectfully. Speaking clearly in conversations requires courage because you cannot control how others will respond. Yet, when you share your perspective calmly, you reinforce the belief that your voice matters. This does not mean forcing your opinion in every situation. It means allowing yourself to participate openly rather than remaining silent due to fear of judgment. Each time you communicate authentically, you strengthen your confidence in your own reasoning. Setting personal boundaries is another powerful form of self-trust. Boundaries reflect your understanding of what is healthy for your time and energy. When you say yes to every request out of fear or obligation, you weaken trust in your own priorities. When you respectfully decline commitments that do not align with your values, you reinforce the idea that your choices deserve respect. Learning to listen to your instincts also contributes to self-trust. The mind often senses when something feels right or wrong before it can explain the reasons clearly. While instincts should not replace thoughtful analysis, they can provide valuable signals. Paying attention to these signals helps you understand yourself better. Another practical method for strengthening self-trust involves simplifying decisions whenever possible. Overthinking often occurs because the mind tries to examine too many possibilities at once. Reducing the number of options allows you to choose more easily and move forward. For example, create a routine for certain daily tasks. Decide in advance when you will exercise, read, or complete focused work. These routines remove unnecessary decision-making and allow you to direct your energy toward meaningful progress. Reflection at the end of the day also supports this process. Spend a few quiet minutes reviewing your actions. Notice the moments when you made confident decisions and followed through. Recognize these moments as evidence of growth. Acknowledging progress strengthens motivation to continue practicing. Patience is essential during this journey. Self-trust does not appear instantly. It develops through repeated experiences where you choose action instead of avoidance. Each step forward builds a stronger connection between your intentions and your behavior. You may encounter moments when doubt returns. This is normal. Confidence is not the absence of uncertainty. It is the willingness to act responsibly even when outcomes remain unclear. During these moments, remind yourself of the decisions you have handled successfully in the past. Another helpful practice is focusing on values rather than approval. When decisions are guided primarily by the desire to please others, self-trust weakens because your direction depends on external reactions. When choices reflect your principles, you gain clarity about what matters most. Values such as honesty, responsibility, kindness, and discipline provide a reliable framework for decision-making. When you choose actions aligned with these principles, your mind recognizes the integrity behind those choices. Over time, your relationship with decisions changes. Instead of seeing them as threats, you begin viewing them as opportunities to grow stronger. The mind stops searching endlessly for perfect certainty and starts trusting the process of learning through experience. Confidence built through daily decisions has a calm quality. It does not rely on loud declarations or dramatic gestures. It appears quietly in the way you approach responsibilities. It appears in the steady tone of your voice during conversations. It appears in the discipline with which you manage your time and attention. This calm confidence makes overthinking less powerful. When you trust yourself, you do not feel the need to analyze every detail repeatedly. You gather the necessary information, choose a direction, and move forward with focus. Small decisions may seem insignificant in isolation, yet together they shape your character. Every time you act with honesty and follow through with commitment, you reinforce the belief that you are capable of guiding your own life. The world will always contain uncertainty. Situations will arise where no choice guarantees a perfect outcome. In these moments, self-trust becomes a steady companion. It reminds you that even if a decision leads to difficulty, you possess the ability to adapt and respond wisely. This understanding removes much of the fear surrounding decisions. Instead of waiting endlessly for reassurance, you begin engaging with life directly. Challenges become manageable because you believe in your capacity to handle them. Through steady practice, the voice of doubt becomes quieter. The voice of trust grows stronger. You begin to recognize that the power to move forward has always been present within your daily choices. Strengthening self-trust does not require extraordinary talent. It requires consistent honesty with yourself and the willingness to act with courage in ordinary moments. Each decision made with integrity adds another layer of confidence. As these layers accumulate, the anxious habit of overthinking gradually fades. In its place appears a steadier mindset that approaches life with clarity and purpose. The path to this transformation begins with simple choices made today. Decide what matters most. Take responsibility for your actions. Speak truthfully. Honor your commitments. Learn from each experience. By practicing these small daily decisions, you build a foundation of self-trust that supports every area of your life. Over time, this foundation becomes strong enough to carry you through both calm days and challenging seasons with quiet confidence and unwavering determination. Chapter 80. Create clear priorities that guide your thoughts every day. Every day begins with a quiet but powerful question, even if most people never say it out loud. What truly deserves your attention today? The way a person answers that question determines how their thoughts move, how their energy is spent, and how their life gradually unfolds. Without clear priorities, the mind becomes vulnerable to distraction. It reacts to whatever appears first rather than choosing what truly matters. Many people experience constant mental noise because their priorities are not clearly defined. When everything feels important, nothing receives focused attention. The mind jumps between responsibilities, unfinished ideas, outside opinions, and small interruptions. This scattered movement creates fatigue. It also weakens the ability to think clearly because the brain never settles long enough to concentrate deeply on one meaningful direction. Clear priorities act like a compass for the mind. They provide guidance when the day begins and decisions start appearing. Instead of wondering what to do next or reacting to every message and request, a person with strong priorities already knows where their attention belongs. Their thoughts naturally move toward the work, relationships, and responsibilities that carry the most value. Creating priorities requires honesty. Many individuals claim certain things matter to them, yet their daily behavior reveals a different story. A person may say health is important, but ignore sleep and movement. Someone may say family matters most, but allow constant distractions to replace meaningful conversation. Priorities become real only when actions consistently support them. To begin clarifying priorities, it helps to step back and examine the larger direction of your life. Ask yourself what areas truly shape your future and personal growth. For most people, these areas include health, relationships, meaningful work, learning, and personal integrity. These categories form the foundation upon which daily choices are built. Once these areas are recognized, the next step involves identifying what deserves the strongest focus right now. Life moves through seasons. At one moment, a project may require intense attention. At another time, a relationship may need care and patience. Priorities change as circumstances evolve, but clarity remains essential in every stage. When priorities are clear, thinking becomes more organized. Instead of allowing every new idea to capture your attention, you evaluate whether it supports your main direction. If something aligns with your priorities, you give it thoughtful consideration. If it does not contribute to your goals or values, you allow it to pass without consuming energy. This simple filtering process protects your mental focus. The modern world constantly offers stimulation through notifications, opinions, news, and endless content. Without priorities, the mind attempts to process everything. With priorities, the brain learns to recognize what deserves attention and what can safely be ignored. One practical way to strengthen this habit is beginning each day by identifying a small number of essential tasks. These tasks should connect directly to your larger priorities. By completing them early or giving them your best energy, you ensure that the day contributes to meaningful progress rather than random activity. Many people make the mistake of filling their schedule with minor tasks because these actions feel easy to complete. While small responsibilities are necessary, they should not replace the work that truly matters. When priorities guide your thinking, you recognize the difference between activity and progress. Progress often requires deeper focus and patience. Important tasks may feel challenging because they demand creativity, discipline, or sustained attention. Without clear priorities, it becomes tempting to avoid these tasks and spend time on easier distractions. With priorities in place, the mind understands that effort invested in meaningful work creates long-term rewards. Clear priorities also reduce internal conflict. When values and actions align, the mind experiences less confusion. You know why you are spending time in certain ways, and this understanding brings a sense of purpose to ordinary routines. Even difficult work feels more satisfying because it serves a larger intention. Relationships benefit greatly from defined priorities as well. When people matter to you, your schedule and attention should reflect that truth. Taking time to listen, support, and share experiences strengthens bonds that enrich life beyond material success. Priorities remind you to protect these moments rather than allowing business to consume them. Another important element of prioritization is learning to say no when necessary. Every commitment requires time and energy. If you accept every request without careful thought, your attention becomes divided among too many directions. Saying no respectfully allows you to preserve the energy needed for the commitments that truly matter. This skill does not mean rejecting opportunities or ignoring others. It means understanding your limits and honoring the priorities that guide your life. A thoughtful refusal often protects both your well-being and the quality of your work. Clarity of priorities also influences the way you think throughout the day. When challenges appear, the mind quickly asks whether the situation connects to what matters most. This perspective prevents unnecessary stress over minor issues. Small inconveniences lose their power when you recognize they do not affect your deeper goals. At the same time, priorities encourage responsibility for the things that truly deserve attention. Instead of delaying important tasks, you approach them with commitment because you understand their role in shaping your future. Reflection strengthens this process. Taking a few minutes at the end of each day to review how you spent your time can reveal valuable insights. Did your actions support your priorities? Did distractions pull your attention away from meaningful work? Honest observation allows you to adjust tomorrow's choices with greater awareness. It is also helpful to revisit your priorities periodically. Life circumstances change, and growth sometimes requires new directions. What mattered deeply several years ago may no longer hold the same importance. Revising priorities ensures that your thinking remains aligned with your current values and aspirations. A life guided by clear priorities often feels calmer even during busy periods. The mind does not waste energy wondering whether time is being used wisely. You know the reason behind your efforts. This clarity creates a quiet sense of confidence. Another benefit appears in decision-making. When priorities are established, choices become easier. Instead of analyzing every possible option, you evaluate whether each option supports your main direction. This approach reduces overthinking and allows you to act with greater certainty. The discipline of prioritization also encourages patience. Important goals rarely appear instantly. Progress usually requires consistent effort over long periods. By focusing your attention on what matters most, you avoid the temptation to chase every new idea that promises quick results. This steady focus gradually shapes your character. You become known as someone who directs energy with purpose rather than drifting through random activity. Others begin to trust your judgment because your actions reveal clear intention. Perhaps the greatest gift of strong priorities is the sense of meaning they bring to everyday life. Even simple tasks gain significance when they contribute to a larger vision. Preparing for work, learning new skills, maintaining health, and supporting loved ones all become part of a coherent direction. Without priorities, days blur together and progress feels uncertain. With priorities, each day becomes an opportunity to move a little closer to the life you truly want to build. Creating this structure requires reflection, discipline, and honesty with yourself. Yet the reward is a mind that thinks with clarity and a life that moves with purpose. Each morning offers another chance to practice this focus. Decide what deserves your attention. Protect that attention from unnecessary distractions. Allow your thoughts to follow the path defined by your deepest values. When priorities guide your thinking, the mind stops wandering without direction. Energy flows toward meaningful action. Decisions become simpler. Progress becomes visible. Over time, this practice shapes not only your schedule but your identity. You become someone who lives intentionally, someone whose thoughts and actions are aligned with what truly matters. And when that alignment becomes a daily habit, life gains a quiet strength that carries you forward with steady determination and lasting clarity. Chapter 9Z. Replace worry with productive movement and meaningful effort. Worry has a quiet way of occupying the mind long before anything actually happens. A person may sit in a calm room with no immediate danger, yet their thoughts begin creating scenes of problems that may never arrive. The mind rehearses negative possibilities again and again. Energy is spent imagining difficulties instead of responding to real circumstances. This pattern is extremely common, and many people live with it for years without realizing how much strength it quietly drains. Worry feels like thinking, but in truth it is a loop of unproductive repetition. The same concerns appear repeatedly without moving toward a solution. The mind circles around uncertainty while the body remains still. Time passes, yet nothing changes because worry itself does not create progress. It only magnifies the feeling that something is wrong. One of the most effective ways to weaken worry is through movement and meaningful effort. When the body and mind become engaged in purposeful action, the endless cycle of anxious thought begins to lose its hold. Attention shifts from imagined outcomes toward real activity. This shift changes the emotional atmosphere of the mind. Productive movement does not require dramatic effort or extraordinary plans. It begins with simple action directed toward something useful. When a concern appears, ask yourself whether there is a step you can take right now. If there is, even a small one, begin there. Action transforms uncertainty into engagement with reality. Many worries exist because the mind feels powerless. It imagines situations where nothing can be done, and this belief creates tension. Yet when you take even a modest step forward, the mind receives evidence that effort is possible. That evidence begins dissolving the feeling of helplessness. Consider how often people worry about unfinished responsibilities. Tasks remain incomplete, and the mind keeps returning to them throughout the day. The longer they are delayed, the heavier they feel. Yet once the person begins working on the task, the emotional weight starts to decrease. Progress replaces anxiety. Movement creates momentum. When you start addressing one responsibility, the energy produced by that action often carries into the next task. The mind becomes focused on completion rather than concern. This momentum builds confidence because it proves that effort leads somewhere meaningful. Meaningful effort is important because not all activity provides relief from worry. Some people stay busy with random distractions while avoiding the work that truly matters. Although this activity fills time, it does not remove the underlying tension because the real issue remains untouched. Purposeful effort means directing your energy toward the responsibilities and goals that influence your life. These actions might involve learning a skill, improving health, strengthening relationships, or completing important work. When your attention is invested in these areas, the mind experiences a deeper sense of direction. Another reason productive movement reduces worry is that it brings your attention into the present moment. Worry usually lives in imagined futures. The mind predicts outcomes that have not occurred and may never occur. Action, however, exists in the present. When you are focused on writing, building, learning, exercising, or solving a problem, your awareness settles into the task in front of you. This present focus interrupts the habit of projecting fear into the future. Instead of asking what might go wrong later, you begin asking what can be done right now. The difference between these questions is powerful. One produces anxiety, while the other creates progress. Physical movement also plays an important role in this transformation. The body and mind are closely connected. When a person remains inactive for long periods while thinking intensely, tension builds within the body. Muscles tighten, breathing becomes shallow, and fatigue increases. Engaging the body through walking, stretching, working with your hands, or exercising helps release this tension. Physical movement signals to the brain that energy is being used constructively. This change often brings mental clarity because the body is no longer holding stress in stillness. Meaningful effort also strengthens self-respect. When you face concerns through action rather than avoidance, you demonstrate responsibility for your life. Each completed step becomes evidence that you are capable of responding to challenges. This sense of responsibility changes the way the mind reacts to future problems. Instead of immediately falling into worry, you begin searching for possible solutions. Experience teaches you that progress often begins with a single practical step. It is also helpful to recognize that not every situation requires immediate resolution. Some worries arise from circumstances beyond personal control. In these cases, meaningful effort may involve preparing wisely, gathering information, or strengthening yourself mentally and physically. Preparation transforms uncertainty into readiness. Even if the outcome remains unknown, you know that you have done what is within your power. This knowledge reduces unnecessary anxiety because the mind respects honest effort. Another helpful practice involves directing attention toward constructive routines. Daily habits create structure for your energy. When you begin the day with purposeful activity, the mind naturally follows that direction. Morning routines that include planning, reading, exercise, or focused work establish a productive tone. These actions remind the mind that effort matters more than worry. As the day continues, this mindset encourages continued engagement with meaningful tasks. Reflection at the end of the day can also strengthen this habit. Consider the efforts you made rather than dwelling on concerns that did not lead to action. Recognizing progress reinforces the belief that movement is more valuable than endless thinking. It is important to remember that productive effort does not mean exhausting yourself without rest. Rest and reflection are necessary parts of a balanced life. However, rest becomes truly refreshing when it follows honest effort rather than prolonged avoidance. Another benefit of meaningful action is the sense of contribution it creates. When your work improves something around you, whether in your personal life or within your community, the mind experiences a deeper form of satisfaction. This satisfaction naturally reduces the space available for unnecessary worry. The habit of movement also encourages resilience. Challenges will continue to appear throughout life. Some situations may feel uncertain or uncomfortable. Yet when you have trained yourself to respond with effort rather than fear, these moments become opportunities to apply your strength. Over time, the mind begins to understand a simple truth. Worry rarely changes circumstances, but effort often does. Even when results are not immediate, effort moves life forward in ways that passive concern never can. Replacing worry with movement is not a single decision made once. It is a practice repeated daily. Each time anxious thoughts appear, you gently redirect your attention toward something useful. You take a step, however small, toward improvement. Gradually this pattern becomes natural. The mind stops clinging to imagined fears and begins searching for practical responses. Energy that once fed worry now fuels growth and progress. This transformation changes your relationship with challenges. Instead of seeing them as threats that must be feared, you begin viewing them as situations that require thoughtful action. As productive movement becomes a regular habit, the emotional weight of worry fades. The mind grows calmer because it knows that problems will be met with effort rather than endless speculation. Life becomes more purposeful in this state. Your attention is invested in building, learning, improving, and contributing. Each day carries a sense of direction because your energy is being used to shape reality rather than imagining its worst possibilities. Through consistent effort, worry gradually loses its influence. It no longer dominates your thoughts or steals your time. In its place stands a steady commitment to action, growth, and meaningful engagement with the world around you. And as this commitment deepens, the mind discovers a quiet freedom that comes from knowing your energy is always moving towards something constructive, something real, and something capable of creating positive change. Chapter 1: Commit to mental discipline and live with peaceful focus. Mental discipline is the foundation of a life that feels steady, focused, and purposeful. Without it, the mind drifts constantly from one thought to another, pulled by distractions, emotions, and external demands. Many people believe that focus is natural or comes easily, but in reality it is a skill built through practice, attention, and consistency. When the mind is trained deliberately, you begin to experience calm and clarity in a way that transforms daily life. Every decision, every action, and every thought becomes aligned with purpose rather than scattered by impulse. Developing mental discipline begins with awareness. Observe where your attention goes throughout the day. Notice how often it shifts toward trivial matters, interruptions, or worries about the past or future. This awareness does not need judgment. It simply identifies patterns so that change can begin. Recognition is the first step because you cannot direct energy effectively if you do not know where it is currently being spent. Once you understand the current patterns of your mind, you can begin making small adjustments. Choose one area of life where focus is essential and commit to consistent attention there. It might be a work project, personal learning, exercise, or even a quiet period of reflection. The specific area matters less than the consistency of your effort. Each focused session trains the mind to return to concentration, even when distractions arise. Mental discipline also requires patience. The mind will resist order at first. It will wander, question the effort, and attempt to return to old habits of scattered thought. This resistance is natural. The mind has grown comfortable with chaos and novelty, and sustained effort feels unnatural initially. Progress comes through repetition, not intensity. Regular practice builds new neural pathways that strengthen attention and control. A key principle of disciplined focus is prioritization. When the mind knows what truly matters, it can resist distractions more effectively. Without clear priorities, mental energy spreads too thin, creating a feeling of constant business without meaningful accomplishment. A disciplined mind aligns daily actions with values and goals, ensuring that every effort contributes to long-term purpose. This alignment is the anchor that prevents distraction from derailing progress. Daily routines are an effective tool for reinforcing discipline. Structured habits reduce decision fatigue and create a stable framework for attention. When certain actions are scheduled consistently, the mind anticipates focus during those times, which makes sustained concentration easier. For example, setting a dedicated time for study, reflection, or focused work allows the mind to engage deeply without constant interruption. Mental discipline also involves managing emotional responses. The mind easily reacts to stress, frustration, or unexpected challenges, which can scatter attention. Observing emotions without immediately acting on them strengthens control. By acknowledging feelings without allowing them to dominate thought, the mind can maintain clarity even under pressure. Emotional regulation is inseparable from disciplined thinking because unchecked reactions often dismantle focus before meaningful action can occur. Another element of building mental discipline is learning to control exposure to distractions. Modern life presents constant stimuli, from notifications to endless media content. Discipline is strengthened by choosing when and where to engage with these inputs. This may involve turning off alerts, limiting time on social media, or creating physical spaces conducive to concentration. By protecting attention, the mind preserves the energy necessary for deep, productive focus. Reflection and review further enhance mental strength. Taking moments to examine how attention was spent, where distractions emerged, and what patterns repeated allows for course correction. This practice creates insight into how the mind operates, making future decisions more intentional. It is a feedback loop where conscious observation strengthens self-control over time. Discipline is also reinforced by action. The mind builds confidence through results. Completing tasks, following through on commitments, and adhering to routines provide evidence that focused effort produces meaningful outcomes. Each success, no matter how small, reinforces the ability to sustain attention and resist mental drift. Momentum builds as the mind associates discipline with tangible progress. Breathing and physical practices also support a disciplined mind. Calm, deliberate breathing reduces mental agitation and anchors awareness in the present moment. Movement, whether exercise or simple stretching, refreshes the brain and strengthens the connection between mind and body. A person who cares for the body creates an environment where mental focus can thrive naturally. Discipline is not only mental, it is embodied in the way energy is managed throughout the day. Visualization and intention setting are additional tools. Starting the day with clear intentions reinforces mental direction. By imagining the steps required to achieve goals or maintain focus, the mind prepares itself for disciplined action. This preparation reduces the likelihood of wandering attention and strengthens the ability to remain present with meaningful tasks. Commitment to mental discipline also involves accepting imperfection. The mind will occasionally wander, mistakes will occur, and focus will be lost. The disciplined individual does not succumb to frustration but gently redirects attention back to purpose. This practice is repeated continuously. Over time, redirection becomes automatic, and the mind learns resilience through consistent effort rather than immediate perfection. Living with peaceful focus emerges naturally when discipline is practiced daily. The mind no longer chases every fleeting thought or reacts impulsively to distractions. Instead, it engages with the present moment intentionally, directing energy toward what truly matters. Peace arises not from the absence of challenges, but from the certainty that attention is applied effectively and consistently. The benefits of this practice extend to every area of life. Work becomes more productive because energy is not wasted on irrelevant thoughts. Relationships become richer because presence replaces distraction. Learning accelerates because sustained attention allows deeper understanding. Even simple daily activities gain clarity and satisfaction when performed with mindful engagement. Discipline also enhances resilience. Challenges and unexpected events no longer produce panic or excessive worry. A mind trained in focus responds calmly and effectively because it has practiced directing energy intentionally. Obstacles are handled one step at a time, and clarity replaces reactive chaos. This approach reduces mental fatigue and creates a stable sense of competence. As discipline strengthens, overthinking gradually loses its power. The mind no longer spirals endlessly because each thought is measured against priorities and purpose. Anxiety diminishes because attention is applied constructively rather than wasted on imagined fears. Peaceful focus becomes habitual, and a sense of mastery grows from repeated evidence that effort produces calm and clarity. Mental discipline is cultivated through repetition, patience, and intentional action. It requires observing the mind, directing attention toward meaningful goals, managing emotions, controlling distractions, and maintaining consistent routines. Each of these practices reinforces the others, creating a cohesive system that strengthens focus and reduces internal chaos. Living with peaceful focus is the result of this ongoing practice. It is not a state achieved once, but a skill honed over time. Each day offers opportunities to practice clarity, respond deliberately, and direct energy toward purpose. The mind learns to sustain attention naturally, handle challenges effectively, and act in alignment with values and priorities. Through dedication to mental discipline, life becomes calmer, more productive, and deeply satisfying. Thoughts no longer drift aimlessly, worry diminishes, and energy flows into meaningful action. The individual who commits to this path experiences clarity, resilience, and a quiet confidence that comes from knowing that the mind is firmly under intentional guidance. This is the power of disciplined focus and the foundation for living a life of peace, purpose, and sustained personal growth.